when we come back from lunch, we are going to move. We're going to do early circle activities. So don't eat so much that you're not able to run around and skip and jump and stuff like that, okay? I mean, just be mindful of that. If you want to, that's fine. But we are going to move after lunch. So just keep that in mind when you're eating that third chicken fried steak. So questions? Any questions? And it doesn't have to be on this. It can be on anything.
Yeah, how many, so you're drawing these, and I mean, it's going to take, as a teacher, it takes me sometimes as long as the fastest kid in my class to do a drawing. And so for each one of these, did you have an example, or did you end up
Yeah, I like to draw. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do. So this is one of, I think, 3 geometry books I have. So in some of them I have the same drawing done 2 and 3 times just because I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
So if I felt like this drawing, if I just did a drawing the day before with them that was really carefully colored and I had an example of it, I may not prepare this in advance and just say, we're going to shade this as we did yesterday's drawing. And I've done it on the board, and that's all. They don't need to see it finished. Yeah? But in another instance, when I had my 7th grade, I really felt like I needed to develop a sense of camaraderie with them. So I made a commitment to them that everything that they did in their books, I would also do. And that was really a bad, that was a bad mistake because it was just ridiculous. And I could not keep up with them. I could not. But I tried, and they saw that I was trying. And I think that was enough for most of them, if not all of them, to see, okay, she has made an effort. But it's not necessary to do every one of them unless you want to and you have the time. But I think you need to do enough of them, especially if your class is really struggling. Maybe you've adopted a class that didn't have much drawing before you came, or they're just a class that's not artistically inclined as a whole. Or you can also pull Susie over and say, Susie, you did a really beautiful drawing. Would you like to prepare a drawing for tomorrow? Or something. I mean, you can work it in different ways so that you get that drawing on the board without you having to spend 3 hours the night before doing it. Yeah. Or maybe you've started it. You can say, this is the drawing that I've started. You can see that I've only shaded this, the blue and the yellow, but I haven't shaded the other. I am not sure yet what colors I want those to be. Or I just, I had to run to the store last night and I didn't get around to it or whatever. But, you don't have to come to them every day with a completed image. But if it helps you teach them how to create those images, then I would say do it. Do it as much as you can. If it helps to have the support that, all right, I know how to do this drawing because I just did it last night.
There are will force issues with the children. It's going to be really necessary to complete the drawings, right? I mean,
Yes.
I hate drawing in front of the children, and I'll tend to prepare one at home and come in, and I'll have some basic idea of, like, I'm going to go through this much, I'm going to create these volumes with them, and then I'm going to let them go. Mm-hmm. And the way that started turning out was my weak will force children were basically just still drawing the exact same thing I was drawing, which was maybe, a green shading of a dragon and a blue shading of an ocean and a brown cliff.
And that's as far as they got.
Yeah, do a little more.
Uh-huh.
And then some of them were full of doubt and, you know, they didn't really know what else to do without being very specifically shown.
Yeah.
And then the other ones are so independent, they absolutely do not want me to show them what else to draw.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, that's a wide range.
Yeah.
Well, again, you have to work with who you've got in front of you, and if it means that, you know, maybe not every night, but you're going to have to, in a way, choose your battles and say, well, okay, on these days, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to make sure I have for them something that they can, for those that don't have that inner will to or imagination, I'm going to fulfill something on those days to completion so that they've got that going for them, but not necessarily every day. But, you know, choose that.
Thank you.
So what did you feel like this did for you when you were doing it?
Oh, it was, you know, not having a lot of geometry and math. I mean, it's been many years since I had geometry classes, and these were wonderful little ahas for me, you know, to just look at these different, just comparing the quadrangles and how different they were, and it started for me, I think, the same process that the children experience of, oh, I see this is this, and then this leads to this. So by the time I was teaching perspective drawing in 7th grade, I just had a broader, wholer picture of the linear process of how these things all unfold one on top of another on top of another. So again, it was helpful just for me intellectually to understand it, but it was also such an enthusiastic yes to the genius of the unfolding Waldorf curriculum. You know, that then I was always jazzed. I could walk into the classroom and I'd be like, look at this, you know, isn't this cool? You know, to walk into a 7th grade classroom and put this on the board. Let's see. How do I want to do this? What do you see? It's a wall. It's not a wall. It's two images of parallel lines of clusters of yellow chalk. Why is it a wall?
Imagination.
That's so good.
Why is it a wall? Does anybody else see a wall?
I see telephone poles.
Telephone poles. Okay. What else do you see?
A mirror image and a further image.
Yeah. So, you know, a wall. Or two trees, or whatever. But isn't that amazing? I mean, when I could, you know, just do this and have a whole class of 26 children say, well, this is, you know, these represent something and this one's further away than this one. Yay! You know, you're like, yay! Yeah, it's just such a fabulous thing. So, you know, these were just tools for me to, and just develop the appreciation for all of the different shapes and their relationships to each other, and artistically, because I tend to think artistically minded, how all the different ways that you could shade them and color them to be beautiful. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also enjoyed just the conversations that I would have with my class. I mean, and some of them were, kind of like, what's she doing now? But then there were others who were like, oh yeah, and they were finding all these different comparisons, and that's what you want. That's the point of this, is to find these. How are these similar? How are they different? And again, going back to these as family members, and liken it to your class or the students' families, and how you have the parents who may have a certain set of characteristics, and how the children, the siblings, are all slightly different, and maybe you've got the cousins are even a little bit more different still, and and there's some antipathy between the siblings, because I've got this and you've got that, and I've got diagonal lines that are at 90-degree angles, and you've got midlines that and just looking at them as idiosyncratic features that each one has, and some of them have similarities because after all they are descendants of the original square, but they all have their own little traits that make them different. And then maybe have a conversation with your class about that. How are you different from your sibling? How are you different from Joey? And I always had twins in my class, so there was always this, oh, how is Luke different than Cassio, and how is and in first grade when we went around the room and I asked them all what their favorite color was, and one of the twins said brown, and everyone laughed. And then we got to the second twin and we said, what's your favorite color? He said brown. Okay. So, just I tried as much as possible to always pull something out of a lesson, even if it was highly intellectual or academic, and relate it to them and bring it into humor, and and take this little bit, oh, that's kind of like so-and-so, and in that way, and where everyone could have a good laugh about it, including so-and-so, I think was highly beneficial for my class. They needed that sense of a little bit of levity. They were a little bit serious and kind of melancholic, phlegmatic, and I was anything but. And so, just bringing in those little drops of humor every now and then and kind of lifting them out of that heaviness, they needed a lot of. So I tried as often as possible to take things from the lesson and drop it into a little bit more of their soul life. Yeah?
When I was doing these kinds of drawings with my students, I have some boys that are really very intellectual and awake, and they kind of really started pressing me about kind of like, what's a line, what's a point, and I have some guilt. I hope you'll alleviate, because basically it came down to me telling them, none of these are real things. These are all things that exist inside the human mind.
Yeah.
They're fifth graders. So, I don't know, maybe you could...
That's no different than me doing this.
Right.
It's the same thing. This is a concept point. It's a particular point in space that exists conceptually. And the line, and I mean, the whole reason that we walk the circle and we grow to understand that it is never changing. It is the same on every single edge. It never changes. And how different that is from the rhythmic quality of straight, and how, I mean, just, and that it's all, we're bringing them concepts over and over and over again, but the whole point of it is that we're bringing them in these enlivened ways, artistically, physically, moving them through it, that they're not dead concepts. That's why when I can put this on the board and joke about it being a cluster of chalk, they all can laugh about it, because they start going back and forth between the concept and the representative of the concept. And once you get them to that point where they can make that jump back and forth, then, you know, all of your upper grades, sciences and math, that it all works kind of from these, you know, we set forth all of these concepts and then we work from them. So you should not have any guilt. I don't think you should have any guilt.
But this is something that you gave to them in the 7th grade, when we think about...
No, not in 7th grade. I was doing this in 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think of like conceptual thinking really awakening after the 12-year change, and so I was worried that that was too much. Of course, those boys seem to handle it. You know, the ones that don't think like those boys do just, you know, fell asleep. They didn't hear it, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember doing this with my class in 5th grade, and they all completely knew what I was talking about. So I don't... To say that a 5th and 6th grader doesn't have a world around them of concepts, I don't think that that's a concern. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat how you have that lesson to distinguish between the concept and between what's real. I mean.
And, you know, and there were students who definitely, it penetrated much more deeply. The more awake students are going to take that in much more deeply, and they'll remember it. It will have significant meaning and value for them that we just took this leap from this being a point. No, it's not a point. It's just a cluster of chalk. To, you know, and then back and forth. That flexibility is wonderful. I think it's very valuable. I think that's what we're going for, is this flexibility. No, it's only this. No, it can't only be that. Not in this world.
Speaking of concepts.
We're at time.
So you were saying between the percept and the concept and anthroposophic.
Yes.
That's what you were really
Yes.
talking about, between the percept and the concept.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're at time. Thank you. Are we all eating here? Yeah. Okay. Bon appetit. Oh, so we should sing. Does anybody know For Sun and Rain? Oh, we get to learn a new song. For Sun. It's around. You do? Oh, good.
It's been a while, but yes.
I was trying to make us.
Of course you are. You're in the 1st grade. For sun and rain, for grass and grain, for all who toil on sea and soil, that we may eat this daily food, we give our love and thanks to you. Blessings on our meal. So why do we do circle in the classroom, and particularly in the lower grades? So some things that come to mind are probably above and beyond anything else is the fact that, unfortunately, the children of our contemporary times do not move nearly as much as in other prior times. They, in most cases, are driven to school, driven home from school. They spend a lot of more time indoors. They spend more time being sedentary than in the past. And certainly families in Waldorf pedagogy tend to be aware of that and tend to get their kids outside and moving more, but there's still the automobile to combat. And to enliven their bodies is a huge aspect of the circle. But there's also a lot of other things going on. So there are social components. There's a lot of a lot of giving and taking that happens in the circle that develops into mindfulness of the other human being as they go. I don't know, how many of you are familiar with the 12 senses and the kind of the mirroring of the lower senses and the upper senses having to do with one another? So in a nutshell, your most basic lower senses correspond, if you were to write a grocery list of all 12 of them, the lowest sense relates to the highest sense, which is the sense of the other. And then the second lowest sense, so it touches at the bottom, yeah? Touch relates to awareness of another ego. And then you have wellness of being relates to, and then so you have all of these correspondences. So one of the things that then comes out of all of this physical movement is a healthy development of their lower senses that will then allow for a healthy development of their higher senses, which then leads to a society of people who have their egos developed well enough to care about another person's ego or the environment or, yada, yada, yada. So that's a pretty lofty goal for playing hand clapping games first thing in the morning, is that you are ultimately trying to develop a citizen of the earth. Aside from that, we're developing some large motor skills, fine motor skills, forwards and backwards movement, awareness of each other in the circle, awareness of one's own body in the circle. So there's just a lot of physical developmental issues that are going on, especially in the first few grades. You want to have, and in kindergarten, opportunities for the children to cross their midlines, horizontal and vertical midlines, so that if there are barriers left over from earlier ages, you can start hopefully dissolving some of those without having additional remediation. Do you want to say anything else?
No, that's great. Also the sagittal midline, forwards and backwards.
Yes. So lots of moving, up, down, forwards, backwards, sideways. And then as a subcategory of all that, you have the learning of the spoken word and language arts skills and developing a vocabulary. So you have all of that woven in, all of the poetry that's going to be taught, all of the letter sounds and consonant vowel sounds that are going to be washed over the child every single day as they do the circle, and then have those same letter sounds come out of the lesson as the forming of their speech and the forming of their words and the trickle down effect of them then reading from all of that work. So there's all of these things being woven together. The same thing for math. You can have stepping exercises that are going to work on the different times tables. You have counting exercises. You have all of these different physical games that are allowing math to occur, as we did here early on this morning, of walking these circles and these ellipses, of walking different shapes, learning how to read a clock by first having a child walk the hour, walk the minute, run the second as hands of the clock. So there's myriad ways of producing physical movement for the child as a preemptive lesson. So whatever you're going to bring them in the lower grades, on a more academic realm, you're going to first introduce to them physically through circle. So speech, song, language, math, and on from there. Okay, does that make sense? And then there's the culture. So another arm of why we do circle. There are so many things that you're going to bring to the children during circle activities that are going to open up a window or a door into another culture that they may not be aware of. You are also going to be opening up or reestablishing the window of the culture that they've come from. So the old Mother Goose rhymes, different circle dances, all of these things can be put into the circle with some end goal in mind. Or it may be as simple a goal as, this is a really fun dance. We're going to do this dance. And what comes from that. So there is this whole cultural arm that is very relevant also to the circle. And it gets them moving, it gets them awakened, so they're not just going from the car to the desk, but you have interjected this activity. And as I said earlier, in the younger grades, it's going to look more roundish, it's going to look more whole, it may have more of an imagination woven through the entire thing, and then as you go up through the grades, that's going to drop away less and less as they are incarnating more and more until you are now just doing pretty straightforward physical movements with them, different exercises to get them to move, to stretch, to find a body part. You know, if you're in 8th grade, you're going to have them looking for the tibia in their partner or what have you. So you're going to move it out of this magical fantasy place that it is in the younger grades into a much more clear and concise series of movements that, as I said, may not come all at once first thing in the morning, but may be peppered in throughout your main lesson to achieve a certain goal. Any questions? Oh, good. Let's go. All right. So come, follow, 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 follow me. Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow me? To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. Come, follow, 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 follow me. 1st grade. So it's fall. I want to connect the children with what's going on out in the world. It's fall. Things are starting to change. I wouldn't say that. This is for you. Come, little leaf, said the wind one day. Come over the meadow with me and play. Put on your dresses of red and gold. The summer is gone and the days grow cold, grow cold, grow cold. Let's see. I remember.
Reading that again?
Yes, yes. This is okay. Ready? Come, little leaves, said the wind one day. Come over the meadow with me and play. Put on your dresses of red and gold. The summer is gone and the days grow cold, grow cold, grow cold. So we're going to go out into the woods and get some firewood because it's time to start warming our house for these crisp fall days. So let's all turn to your left. And stepping over stepping stones. 1, 2, 3. Stepping over stepping stones. Come with me. The river's very fast. The river's very wide. And we'll step across on stepping stones to reach the other side. And now we're on the other side, and there's this great big forest ahead of us. There are tall trees in the forest. And fir cones on the ground. Tall trees in the forest, fir cones on the ground. Tall trees in the forest, bend in the wind, bend in the wind. Tall trees in the forest, they stand. Now, you each have your axe with you, yes? So let's get out our axes. We're going to do some chopping of our trees. We're going to go Chip, chop, chip, chop, the woodsman with his chopper chops. Chip, chop, chip, chop, stout and strong and proper chops on larches, oaks, and beeches too. His hatchet brightly rings, and as he chops so cheerily he sings. Chip, chop, chip, chop. Okay, so just a little picture there. And now we've got all of these long logs, and we have to cut them up. And we have saws that we brought with us. I don't know if you noticed them in the wagon, but we have saws. So we have to. Okay, so I'm going to just speak this. No, we're gonna model it. Okay, so we've got a long saw, and we're gonna do this. So this is the gesture you'll have, and you're going to go to and fro. To and fro, see the saw so swiftly go. Little saw, do not tire, cut the wood for winter's fire, cut the logs one by one, till the pile is all done. To and fro, see the saw so swiftly go. Okay? Okay, so you guys do that. I'll say it. Oh, we are the right. Yeah, okay. Ready? To and fro, see the saw so swiftly go. Little saw, do not tire, cut the wood for winter's fire, cut the logs one by one, till the pile is all done. To and fro, see the saw so swiftly go. Yes, okay. And so now we're going to pile up all our wood, and we're going to leave it here for when the wagon comes, and we'll pick it all up. So we can go back the way we came, stepping over stepping stones. 1, 2, 3. Stepping over stepping stones, come with me. The river's very fast, the river's very wide, and we'll step across on stepping stones to reach the other side. And now we're in the house. We're all going to have a rest. Have a seat. Okay. So this is something that you want to develop with your class pretty early on, a way of getting bean bags or small dowels or whatever you have for different kinds of clapping things and rhythmic things. So, and then once they have it, they kind of just have it. So it's nice. So peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot, 9 days old. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot, 9 days old. Everybody have one? Okay, and that takes some work, and you'll have conversation around, okay, so how will we know when we should stop passing? And I always move myself to a different place in the circle, so it's not always, well, when Jared has it, So it's a tricky thing, and for the first graders to be able to do that well, consistently, it's a stretch. So it's something to really practice. So would you all please put your beanbag on your left shoulder? I like having them put them on their heads, but the head lice issue is a little iffy at times. So I got to where because I would just say put it on your head, but shoulder seems to be a little bit safer. And now, without losing it off of your shoulder, see if you can stand up. Oh, and skirts and circle, they're a problem. Skirts and circle, and you'll see why in a minute. So, are any of you familiar with the move in time exercises? You are, okay. So, have you worked with them a lot?
Yes, I don't use the verses that come with them. But
yeah, I've made up a lot of my own, as you'll see in a second. But the exercises are fabulous. And is there a book available here, or do you have your own copy? Okay, yeah. So you might want to see Brett about the Move in Time books. They are 8 exercises, right? There's 8 of them. that start out very simple and they get more elaborate, and you can kind of work them up through the grades and let go of some of the younger ones and pick up them as they go. And they're very precise in terms of the movement, but my understanding is they're mimicking a lot of internal, and David helped me with this, internal rhythms, physical rhythms in the body. So they're reinforcing in a very curative way things that are going. So if you do them the wrong way, you're still getting the children doing an activity, but you're not getting the same benefit out of it as if you do it the way they're prescribed.
They were originally developed by a curative eurythmist, therapeutic eurythmist, who was doing work in hospitals.
Yes.
And she had found that many of the children who she was working with were not able to actually do the eurythmy moves. So she developed these exercises to do with bean bags, or something like that, in a different way to make it more accessible to children earlier on.
Okay, so let's start. We're going to, and this is also one of these where when you're doing these exercises with the students, it's easy for them, oh yeah, I got the beanbag, and they kind of fall asleep in it, and that is not the reason for these. The point of these is to have very, bring them into some clarity. I mean, you're not doing that right, but you want to create pictures for them of what it should look like done well. And so this particular thing, I may, once they are doing it, I've done it for a few days, I'm going to step out of the circle. And instead of doing it with them, which I would do with a lot of the other more dancing, singing things, I'm walking around and I'm watching them, and they know I'm looking to see that they're trying their best. So there is that part of the circle also of when is it just fun and we're doing a dance, and then when do we get into a focused, concerted effort to strive to do something better, okay? So please put your beanbag in your left hand. And this is going to be an image where you're moving from, and again, here's the drawings that we were doing earlier today. We're in the horizontal plane, vertical plane. Horizontal plane, up to vertical, and drop. Okay, so back in your left hand. A baker once was baking a lovely loaf of bread. He mixed together such a dough, he made a cake instead. The queen called for the baker, who came as quick as quick. He said he was so sorry, and it worried him quite sick. The queen, she overheard him, and had to wonder why the king had not approached him to make instead a pie. Okay, so in this, and this is where when you step into this activity with them, you have to hold the picture, and that's why I really am pressing that you do a little bit of looking at the book so that you're very clear about it. But there is a very strong polarity in this and many of the other exercises of the curve and the straight line. The curve and the straight line, and it's a long straight line. It should be dropping from about the chin to their bellies. It's not a catch in the middle. A curve and a straight line. So you have, these are the types of things where you want to get it really well incarnated into your body before you bring it to them, so that you are really looking to see whether they're doing it how you would like. Okay? Here's another one. So again, left hand. Some of them start in the left hand, some of them start in the right hand, and they're very specific about which hand they start in. Yeah?
Yeah.
And these are both, yeah. So we're going around the back first, and you're going to take the beanbag into your other hand, and it's not a throw, it's a pass, and bring it around the other side. And I like to bring an image with this because they tend to just do this down here at their hips or their legs. And so you can present the image of, when you were little and you used to have one of those floaty rings around your middle when you went into the pool or the lake, or some kind of a picture for them that it is going around the middle. It's not down here, okay? So, okay. Yeah, I made up a bunch of the rhymes because I didn't really care for, I didn't like the ones in the book. Over and around, in the very back corner, lived an old maid with a great big nose. She dusted and she mopped till the whole palace sparkled, then she turned around again on her great big nose. So you can make up whatever you want. I tried to have it have something, there has to be some imaginative connection between the movement and what you're doing, but that's basically how you would go about it. And you want enough repetitions, but not that it goes on forever and ever. Please put your beanbag on your right shoulder. And what I tried to do with the beanbags is, as I collected them, I tried to get as many different ways of getting them to either be aware of right or left, or front or back, or to try and get them to be upside down. I tried to get them to be upside down at least once every circle for at least a few seconds, if not longer. And this was a great way to get them to be upside down. So let's do this one first. So for this one, this is one of the, let's do Wee Willie Winky. Sorry, let's do Wee Willie Winky first. So back into your left hand. This one you can't do in a skirt. You'll be able to do it. It's short enough. But if you're wearing one of the longer skirts, it's impossible. So the left hand has the beanbag, and it's going to pass it under the left leg. And you're going to change hands and step your foot down. And now it's going to go under the right leg, change hands, put the foot down. Okay, and it's going to go faster than that, though. So, Wee Willie Winky runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his nightgown, rapping at the window, crying through the locks. Are all the children in their beds, for it's past 8 o'clock. And I tried to give them an imagination of, imagine that your back is Velcroed to a wall, because they tend to do this. They get lower and lower, and now they're not doing the movement at all. Instead, it's really this beautiful lemniscate that's crossing. So all of those things are important, that you're mimicking it as you want them to do. So the skirt. So beanbag is on your right shoulder, and I would go around with the basket. Let's do this one first. So I'm going to come around, and I would tell them, and I would make it different every day. I'd say, I'm going to come around behind you, and if I tap you on the left shoulder, I want you to drop the beanbag behind you. And if I tap you on the right shoulder, I want you to drop the beanbag in front of you. And then I have to remember this.
Yeah.
And then, okay, and now you have to close your eyes. Goes mine. Okay, good. Here's another one. So everybody take a beanbag real quick. So there's, you can do this a million different ways. You can have them stand, have one knee up, and they have to hold it on their leg, and you can collect them that way, or have them see if they can throw it into the basket, which is nearly impossible. So, but here's one that really is wonderful, because then now you can get them upside down. So everybody has their beanbag, turn around, face outside the circle, and they love this. The boys love this. And obviously, you've got a larger space, you've got a bigger circle, and the basket's much further away than this is. So everybody, you're looking through your legs. And on the count, who threw the beanbag?
But it's excited.
And on the count of 5. 1. On the count of 5, you're going to throw the beanbag into the basket. Do not go and retrieve it if you miss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Good job. See how long I've got you upside down? This is so good. So, and I usually do this a couple times. I'll have really faulty counting, and then finally I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I'll choose someone to gather up the strays and put the basket back. So
So the significance of being upside down?
the significance of being upside down is it's all about the inner ear and your sense of balance. So it's, and help me out, David,
So
so
hoping to cross the horizontal midline.
yes, you're crossing the midline, but a lot of it is the inner ear issue, and just the same as you want them to hang upside down from trees and swing, you want a lot of this movement with the head to get it into many different positions during the course of their day. But yeah, the barrier is also one.
Do you ever have children just try and throw those beanbags at each other? Because that's what I was
No, I know.
thinking about. You know, I'm upside down. I was just like, Kim's right there. I'm just going to hit her with this beanbag.
No. They want to get it in this basket so bad.
Okay.
It's their greatest burning desire of the day is to get it in the basket, especially the boys. Well, who would
You
be,
had that thought.
Right.
and it's the boys who would be more inclined to want to throw it at someone anyways, but it would be far more desirable to get it into the basket. Because then they're proving their manhood.
What about balance? Do you ever find the kids just can't stand with their head down between their legs?
No, I've never had that. I mean, they have a hard time having a rest on one leg for a long time. That's much more difficult for them. And some of the children are uncomfortable being upside down. They're not happy with it at all. Okay, how's our time?
1:30.
1:30. Okay, let's just do one thing, and then we'll close. So, body geography is another thing that you want to bring, but it can take place in many different forms. So this is a fun one that's also kind of a memory reductive thing going on at the same time. Just do it with me. You don't have to sing the part because it's all nonsense words anyways. Let me take my glasses off. Teta cloca la tumale la taka male male la wanda male male la wanda. Teta cloca la tumale la taka male male la wanda male male la wanda. Okay, you got the hang of it? So, I would have only done that once, but I did it twice just so you could get a sense of it. And now it's Cloca la tumale la taka, male male la wanda, male male la wanda. La tumale la taka, male male la wanda, male male la wanda. La taka, male male la wanda, male male la wanda. Malay, Malay, la wanda, Malay, Malay, la wanda. La wanda, la wanda. Like that. And you could do it back, you could refill the glass also. And then, so already they've kind of quieted down. This is a concentration activity for them. They're also, midline. Language is going on, words they've never heard before. So I might have done some pretty kind of crazy stuff during, more dancey things and singing. And then I do want to end the circle with something that's a little bit more inward and kind of gets them the transition then to their desks to get onto the next activity, whether it's flute playing or whatever. They're a little more centered, a little bit more within. So we'll hold hands. And get as large as you can. Okay. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. Aye, 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 aye-o, 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 aye-o. Aye, 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 aye-o, 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 aye-o. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. Aye, 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 aye-o, 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 aye-o. Aye, 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 aye-o, aye-o, aye-o. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, return, return. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. Aye, 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 aye-o, 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 aye-o. Aye, 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 aye-o, 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 aye-o. So here they are. They're back at their desks. They haven't had a chance to chat. And we're ready to go on to the next thing. So, and our next thing is faculty meetings. Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that you changed positions so that at the very beginning, I guess my question is, do you have children, do they have like a
In
sign?
order.
They have an order.
They can, if you want them to.
Okay.
When I went to Colorado, I finished a 4th grade there. The teacher was pregnant and was going to have a baby in May, and so they asked me to come and finish their year. And it was a class that had really pushed the parameters all year. And I walked into the Lord of the Flies. And it was the hardest 4 weeks that I have ever taught, because there was so much work to be done. And one of the hardest things about teaching is being consequent consistently, right? That's the hardest thing. And I mean, yes, it's hard to develop a lesson if you don't know that much about the material, and it's hard to sing a song if you can't carry a tune in a paper bag. And I mean, there's all these other things that are hard too. But to be consequential and consistent all the time is, in a way, it's what they want more than anything. It's what they need more than anything. Of course, they don't think they want that, but that's what they need more than anything. And so with this class, boy, if they were clowning around, I'd say, well, let's start again. Well, let's start again. And we would start again and start again and start again until I felt like they were actually putting an effort and trying to do what it was that was required. So they had a circle that would just, it was pandemonium. And and every time we'd move into the circle, there'd be at least 4 or 5 children who would try and go and stand next to their friend out of order. And I'd say, nope, and I finally had to just give, for my support, I had to draw a circle of their initials on the board that I could look over and check. Say, no, you're not, Bobby, you're supposed to be in between Susie and Mark. You're in the wrong place, go. So if the students are not able to stay focused, or they're pushing, testing, then I would create some more form for them. Yeah. Any other circle questions?
Could you go over just kind of the basic? You had some, especially as you came to a close, this is a little more thinking, this is a little more rhythmic, things like that. Could you give a basic form of a first grade and second grade circle?
Well, in the first grade and the first and second grade, and even into third grade circles, most of your blocks are alternating between a language arts block and a math block. So that was a complete language arts circle. I might have one other activity in there that's not so focused on language arts, but in the younger grades, I'm really trying to create a cohesive soul mood and grouping of activities that all work together. They're part of a common theme or thread. And then if it was a math block, I may only have one or two either beanbag activities, unless they were mathematical beanbag activities, but I wouldn't have a lot of move and time in there. I would keep it more mathematical. And maybe only one or two songs or things that just kind of carry the story or the theme of the circle along.
And so your circles tend to 2 or 3 week, 4 week circles that go right with the block, and you change circles
Yep.
with the block changes.
Yep. Although the ending, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, I might have that all year. That's like they know that's their end. That's the end of circle, and they know what to do after that. So there would, yes, there could be things that I might even insert halfway through a circle, or let's say we're in a block and the first week it's going to look like this. The second week I'm going to metamorphose it a little bit, the third week a little bit more, the fourth week a little bit more, as they're learning something about whatever that is along the way. Yeah. But then, yeah, usually then the next block, it will be markedly different.
And transitioning from week to week, just out of personal curiosity, do you usually have that planned out beforehand, or are you kind of using the night and
Both. Both.
And then with the first grade, I was thinking about when you were doing the one about the stepping stones
Yeah.
and walking. And say you have one child that you've been doing this for 2 weeks, and that child never gets the step and is pretty much just running into other people when they're stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do in that point? Because I don't want to necessarily point them
It's,
out.
yeah,
in front of
right.
everybody, but to wake them up and actually.
Right. So again, it's a question of why are they doing that? Are they doing it because they're trying to be disruptive, that they need attention? In which case, I'm going to maybe speak with the parents, give that child some additional attention. So I'm going to remedy it differently than if they have no spatial awareness whatsoever and they're trying their best. If they're doing it because they're being a little rebellious, I might say specifically to them, without anyone else, I'd like to work with you for a couple minutes after your snack before you go outside to play. Because what I found with a number of my boys was they were just being little clowns, and they could do it perfectly well. And all they needed to know was that I was going to keep them in from recess for a couple minutes to make sure that they could do it right. And then the next day in the lesson, they were fine. So that's one aspect. And then if they have real difficult spatial issues, that's a diagnostic tool for you. That means that they might need to, be visiting David. They might need some extra forward and backward movement with you on the side. So it can mean any number of things. But usually when there's a child who's not able to do what the bulk of the class is doing, that's a diagnostic tool for me. That there's some either a midline issue or some barrier or a balance issue. They've got maybe tubes in their ears or who knows what. But that for me is a red flag that there needs to be more concentration on them, and whether that's meditation from you, having a conversation with colleagues, parents, what have you. Yeah.